He married the woman he loved, but only after forcing his mother to agree. What he didn't know was that her silence would later destroy everything. Daniel Thompson was the kind of man who followed logic, not impulse. Calm, responsible, and stable in his choices. But she was honest, educated, and carried herself with grace. They had met during college projects. Their interactions were respectful at first. Over time, that formality softened. Conversations got longer. Eyes lingered. They grew closer without even realizing how or when it had happened. The day Daniel told her about Emma, her face turned cold. He had completed his degree, landed a job at a reputable firm, and was slowly building his life. What he didn't expect was falling in love. Her name was Emma Carter. She wasn't rich. She didn't belong to a well-connected family. After graduation, Daniel was sure. He wanted to marry Emma. She was calm under pressure, never reactive, and valued loyalty. She was exactly the kind of partner he had imagined. When he finally told her, she had hesitated. "Will your family agree?" she asked quietly. Daniel had brushed off the question. "If it's causing you this much trouble, maybe you should reconsider," she said once. "You're not the problem. Our system is. If I can convince you, I can convince them too." Her voice was stiff. "Do what you want. Marry her. But don't expect me to welcome her." But he underestimated how firm his mother's views were. "She doesn't match our name. Do you even know her family's status? After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me," she said again and again. "Just close friends and a few relatives." No celebration from Margaret's side. Emma entered her new home with folded hands and silent prayers. She thought it would hurt him. She kept quiet. "You don't know how to cook properly," she'd say. "The house doesn't smell fresh. Do you do anything right?" Emma never answered back. She accepted the criticism without resistance. A corporate assignment abroad, 1 year in Canada, with a raise and future promotion. He brought it up at dinner. She tried from the beginning. Woke early, made breakfast, helped with chores. She was careful not to offend anyone. She addressed Margaret as Mom, with respect in every word. Margaret Thompson, Daniel's mother, was a traditional woman. For her, status meant everything. Reputation, family name, financial background, those were non-negotiable. "Daniel," she said sternly, "we didn't raise you to marry below your level. She's educated, respectful, kind." "That should matter more," Daniel replied. She expected her to cook, clean, care for the baby, and still act like a guest. She grew tired, but rest wasn't allowed. Margaret dismissed her needs. "Women have been doing this for generations. Stop acting weak." She scolded her for buying baby formula. Accused her of wasting money. But she didn't complain. If Emma made a mistake, she was insulted harshly. He believed his mother just needed time. "She's set in her ways," he'd say. The energy was still. Emma looked thinner, paler. The kids didn't run to him. Emma forced a smile. Daniel kept sending money, video called when possible, and trusted that life at home was running smoothly. "She'll come around." Margaret shook her head. "I've met families. Girls from good homes." "Emma Carter?" Daniel remained calm. "I'm not marrying her family. I'm marrying her." That statement caused weeks of conflict. Margaret stopped speaking to him. She guilt-tripped him at every chance. Other relatives got involved. Calls came in. Some supported Daniel. Most sided with his mother. Emma never demanded anything. A boy. Margaret insisted they would manage. "Don't worry. We'll handle the home." But Daniel refused. Finally, after months of pressure, Margaret gave in. Daniel took that as a win. He thought time would soften her heart. The wedding was small and quiet. But respect wasn't enough. Margaret would point out flaws daily. Daniel, unaware of the exact nature of these interactions, assumed everything was adjusting. Emma didn't tell him the full truth. A year into the marriage, Daniel got a new offer. Margaret immediately encouraged him. "Go. Build your future. These chances don't come often." Emma didn't object. She smiled lightly. "If it's good for you, you should take it." By that time, Emma had just given birth to their first child. Daniel hesitated. But the opportunity was good. He accepted the offer. He left a month later. From a distance, everything seemed fine. Emma texted updates. Margaret spoke to him regularly. But the moment Daniel boarded his flight, everything changed. Margaret dropped the mask. She stopped speaking to Emma unless it was to criticize. When Emma became pregnant again, things got worse. The baby cried at night. Emma had to walk the hall silently, making sure no sound reached Margaret's room. Her body ached. Her spirit wore down. She didn't want Daniel to worry. She told him everything was fine. 1 year later, Daniel returned. He walked into a house that didn't feel like home. Margaret welcomed him as if nothing had changed. Daniel felt something was wrong. He just didn't know what yet. Daniel had been gone for 12 months. Now he was home. He expected noise, laughter, maybe a tight hug from his 2-year-old son, but the house was silent. The child looked at him without recognition. Emma came to the door slowly. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She spoke of neighbors, relatives, and her health. Not once did she mention Emma or the children. He noticed, but said nothing. Daniel walked in. The air felt different. Not warm, not familiar. His mother, Margaret, welcomed him with tea and updates. "You didn't tell me much about her," he said. Later that evening, Daniel sat with his son. The child clung to Emma's clothes. When Daniel picked him up, the boy cried. "I guess he doesn't remember me," Daniel said, half laughing. Emma nodded. "It's been a year. It'll take time." If she served food, Margaret would inspect it before taking a bite. "You always overcook rice," she'd mumble. Emma would say nothing. Daniel turned to his second child, just a few months old. "I thought I did," Emma replied. Daniel noticed her responses were short. Her posture stiff. Something felt off. Over the next few days, Daniel began to observe small things. Emma moved carefully around Margaret. She avoided sitting in the same room too long. When Margaret entered the kitchen, Emma stepped back. Daniel watched quietly. One afternoon, he asked his son, "Do you play outside?" The boy looked at Emma, then shook his head. "Why not?" Emma said, "He stays mostly inside. It's safer." Daniel frowned. "Safer? Don't worry, I kept everything in control while you were gone." She had help. "I managed the house like always." The younger child cried if Margaret held her. Emma rarely made decisions in the house, Margaret did everything. Even how much milk the children drank was controlled. Before she could answer, Margaret entered. That night, Daniel lay awake. Emma slept beside him, but not deeply. He could tell. The next morning, he woke up early. He walked into the kitchen quietly. Margaret wasn't awake yet. Emma stood at the stove, making breakfast. Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped the roti. Daniel stepped closer. "Emma, is something wrong?" She paused. "No. Everything's fine. Emma isn't like other daughters-in-law. She lacks experience. I've had to correct her daily. You should have chosen better, but I've done my best." He didn't press. But by now, he knew. Something was wrong. The next few days confirmed it. His son refused to go near Margaret. Daniel noticed bruises on Emma's wrist. Faint, but there. He asked gently, "Where's this from?" She pulled her sleeve down. "Kitchen cabinet." He didn't believe her. "Just tell me the truth." After you left, she made it clear again. Every day was a reminder. That evening, Margaret served dinner. If I spoke back, she shouted. Sometimes she pushed me. The kids saw it. I couldn't stop her. I thought you'd come back before it got worse." "Daniel," she said while pouring water. Daniel didn't respond. He looked at Emma. She didn't raise her head. "That girl is weak. She can't run this house." I had to be strict. The next morning, Daniel stayed home while Margaret went to the neighbor's house. "I didn't want to cause problems between you two." He sat down with Emma at the dining table. "I need the truth. What happened this year?" Emma hesitated. "Nothing worth worrying about. I saw your arm. You stayed silent at the wedding, but you punished her every day. You destroyed the peace of this house. And now I have to fix what you broke." She stayed quiet. Daniel continued. "I left believing this house was safe. I trusted you'd be treated right. You've lost weight. The kids are distant." Emma looked up. Her voice was steady. She didn't want this marriage. She said it before the wedding. Daniel didn't interrupt. "She controlled everything, what I ate, how long I bathed, how I raised the kids." Daniel's face didn't move. He sat straight, absorbing each word. Emma added, "I never called you." Daniel stood up and walked out of the room. Later that night, he sat with his mother. "I want to ask you something," he said calmly. Margaret smiled. "Of course." Did you treat Emma like a daughter? Margaret's smile faded. Daniel, I raised you. I know what's right for this family. Strict, he asked. Or abusive? Margaret stood up. Don't talk to me like that. I'm asking a question. While I was away, did you hurt her? She doesn't know how to behave. If I corrected her, it was for your good. Daniel's tone remained unchanged. Don't defend yourself. I know what happened. Margaret tried to walk away, but Daniel stopped her. Margaret didn't respond. She walked into her room and closed the door. Daniel sat down alone in the living room. He had married Emma by choice. He had left her in his mother's care. Now, that choice came back with consequences. And this was just the beginning. The house felt colder, even during the day. Daniel no longer saw it as a place of comfort. It was organized and clean, but silence covered everything. Daniel started waking up earlier, observing the house without being seen. He watched how Margaret behaved when she thought no one was around. He saw how she ignored Emma's greetings. How she criticized her in low tones. He saw the flinch in Emma's body language every time Margaret entered the room. Daniel stayed quiet for a few days more. He asked Emma to take the children out one afternoon, just to the park. She hesitated at first. What about your mom? She asked. Just go. I'll manage, Daniel said. After they left, he sat down with Margaret again. I want to talk about something important. Margaret looked up from her magazine. Go ahead. I've seen enough. You didn't accept Emma, and you punished her for an entire year because I didn't marry the woman you chose. Margaret closed the magazine slowly. Don't exaggerate. I disciplined her. That's not the same as punishment. She lived here like a maid. She lost weight. The children are scared of you. That's not discipline. She's too sensitive, Margaret said. Daniel shook his head. That's your excuse. You think everyone is sensitive just because they don't fight back. But I won't let it continue. Margaret leaned back. So what now? You want me to apologize to her? After everything I did for you? No. I want you to leave this house. It's peaceful. You'll have your space. I'll cover everything, bills, groceries. But this house is no longer yours to control. Margaret's face stiffened. What did you say? I'll have someone help you pack. Movers will come tomorrow. I've arranged another place. A 2-bedroom flat near Aunt Lena's house. You re-throwing your own mother out for a woman who couldn't handle basic responsibilities? Margaret's voice raised. I'm asking you to step back from a role you abused. Legally and financially. I didn't argue about the wedding, or the arrangements, or anything else. But this ends here. She stood up. I won't leave. This is my house. It's not. It's mine. Margaret didn't speak again. She walked out of the room, furious. The next day, Daniel handed her the keys to the new apartment. Margaret didn't respond. Emma didn't say anything when she noticed her mother-in-law's things packed. Daniel only said, it's time we rebuild this house the right way. The next morning, Margaret left. Quietly. She didn't say goodbye. Daniel didn't ask for one. Days later, the house finally began to breathe. Emma started talking more. The kids played louder. There were no corrections from the kitchen, no silent stares from the hallway. Daniel resumed his work routine but started spending more time at home. He scheduled outings with the children. He asked Emma simple questions, what she needed, what she wanted. She answered carefully at first, unsure. But slowly, her responses became more direct. The house routine changed. No more tiptoeing. No more quiet meals. Daniel didn't talk much about what had happened. Neither did Emma. But he knew the silence she had endured. He saw its after effects in how she double-checked everything, meals, laundry, even the children's behavior. He didn't fix it with speeches. He fixed it with structure. He brought in a part-time maid to reduce Emma's burden. He helped with the kids every evening. He made sure Emma had her own time, even if it was just reading on the balcony for 20 minutes. One night, while putting the kids to sleep, Daniel asked his son, "Do you like your home now?" The child nodded. "Yes. Mommy smiles more now." That was enough. Later, Daniel sat with Emma. "I know it's late," he said, "but I want to say it anyway. I should have protected you better." Emma replied, "You fixed what you could. That's enough." Daniel nodded. There were no more long conversations about what went wrong. Just daily decisions that moved things forward. Margaret didn't return. She called a few times. Spoke briefly. complained about the flat, asked about the children. Daniel answered neutrally. He didn't stop her from calling. But he didn't invite her back, either. One evening, a neighbor asked Daniel, "Why doesn't your mother live here anymore?" Daniel replied simply, "Because peace is also part of a home." The days after Margaret left were noticeably different. There were no sudden orders from the living room. No footsteps pacing the hallway. No unannounced checks on the kitchen or laundry. Emma woke up early as usual, but she wasn't rushed. He asked Emma if she needed anything. He handled the kids when she was tired. He never mentioned the past. He focused only on keeping things steady. She didn't look over her shoulder while preparing breakfast. The children sat at the table without fear. Their voices grew louder with each passing day. Daniel kept his routine the same, office work in the morning, back by early evening. But now, he stayed involved. Emma started taking small steps to claim her space again. She rearranged the living room furniture. Daniel noticed but didn't comment. They spilled toys and laughed without worrying someone would shout. But she moved differently, no longer walking in calculated steps. Her hands were steadier when she handled the newborn. She cooked dishes she hadn't dared to before, simple ones that Margaret used to mock. Daniel ate them without complaint. One afternoon, she opened the curtains in the hallway. For months, they had stayed shut. The children noticed the change too. They played openly now. But it was their first outing in a long time that wasn't tea for groceries or medical appointments. Daniel watched all this from a distance. Emma didn't speak about what happened. She didn't analyze it. She began reading again. There was a novel she had left unfinished on the shelf for over a year. Daniel saw her sitting on the balcony one evening, flipping its pages. That same night, Emma asked if they could go out for dinner. For a while, she had gone quiet on them too. Now she was reconnecting. Daniel agreed immediately. She didn't eat in a hurry. They went to a quiet place nearby. The kids came along. It wasn't anything fancy. Emma sat calmly throughout the meal. Daniel noticed that she didn't look around nervously. She looked like someone who was finally allowed to exist. Back at home, Emma began changing other things too. She wasn't throwing things away, just starting fresh. She didn't wait for Daniel to accompany them anymore. She handled it all herself. She replaced old bed sheets, cleared out unused utensils, organized the storeroom. Daniel offered help, but she did most of it herself. She also started speaking to her family more regularly. Video calls with her parents, a few chats with her younger sister. One morning, Daniel received a call from his aunt. She had visited Margaret recently. "She's not happy in the new flat," the aunt said. "You should bring her back." Daniel answered calmly. "Emma is finally getting rest. The children are stable. I won't change that." The aunt didn't argue. Daniel didn't mention the call to Emma. Emma continued her quiet progress. She began taking the kids outside daily, to the nearby park, sometimes to the market. She didn't report her activities. She didn't seek approval. She simply did what needed to be done. But it was the first time he'd heard that sound in months. One day, Daniel came home early. He found Emma teaching the older child how to write letters. Flashcards were spread across the table. The baby slept nearby. Daniel didn't interrupt. He stood at the door and watched. Later that evening, he told her, "You're doing well." Emma replied, "I'm trying." He nodded. That was enough. Daniel didn't expect major changes overnight. But he noticed small wins. Emma no longer flinched when the doorbell rang. She stopped double-checking her own cooking. She started leaving the lights on in rooms she used. Before, she kept them off out of habit, fearing Margaret's comments on the electricity bill. She even added a new plant to the kitchen window. One Saturday, Daniel came back from the store and found Emma laughing, just a small moment, a joke from their son. No one mentioned healing. No one used that word. But it was happening. Silently. Slowly. Daniel didn't say much. He remained consistent. He made sure the peace continued. He avoided contact with his mother except for necessary updates. Emma never asked about Margaret. She was focused on the present, on the home, the kids, and herself. It had been 2 months since Margaret had moved out. Daniel and Emma didn't speak of her. The house ran smoothly, the children were calmer, and the atmosphere remained steady. Margaret had adjusted to her new flat with difficulty. She had basic comfort, 2 bedrooms, a functional kitchen, a quiet neighborhood, but she lacked what she valued most, control. The silence in her flat felt unfamiliar. She called Daniel once a week. Their conversations were brief. She asked about the children. He answered. She asked about bills. He confirmed they were paid. She asked when he'd visit. He didn't commit. Margaret grew restless. She began making unannounced visits to relatives. She casually mentioned that Emma had pushed her out. She never adjusted, Margaret told them. I had to keep things together. Daniel couldn't see it. He's blinded by love. She hinted. Some believed her. Others stayed neutral. A few didn't respond. Margaret wanted to return. Let me know if you need anything else sent over. She didn't say it directly at first. Daniel, the flat walls are thin. The neighbors are noisy. Daniel, I think my sugar levels are unstable. I could use help. Daniel, maybe it's time I come back. Even for a few weeks. Each time, Daniel responded clearly. You're more comfortable where you are. Everything you need is there. Margaret understood the message. But she didn't stop. The elder one looked up and froze. Margaret offered a smile. The child turned away. One weekend, without informing anyone, she arrived at Daniel's house. Emma opened the door. Margaret stood outside with a bag in one hand and a neutral expression. Emma stepped aside. Daniel's not home. Margaret walked in. She sat in the living room, placed her bag on the side, and looked around. This place hasn't changed much. Emma didn't respond. She went to the kitchen. Margaret waited 15 minutes. Then she walked to the children's room. You're always welcome to visit. But you can't move back in. She returned to the living room. Daniel entered 10 minutes later. He paused when he saw her. You didn't tell me you were coming. Margaret stood up. I thought I'd surprise you. It's been long enough. Daniel closed the door behind him. We've discussed this. You have your flat now. Margaret crossed her arms. Is this how you treat your own mother? Am I not allowed to visit my own home? Daniel remained calm. Margaret raised her voice slightly. You're choosing that girl over your own blood. I'm choosing peace. I raised you. I managed everything for you. This is how you repay me. You didn't manage. You controlled. You left damage behind. I had to clean it up. Margaret looked toward the kitchen where Emma stood quietly. Daniel continued. You didn't just interfere. You harmed. My wife lost her health. My children lost security. I won't allow it again. Margaret's tone shifted. I'm older now. I'm not here to fight. I just want to be near my family. Should we have let her stay a day at least? Daniel shook his head. You were near us for a year. It nearly broke us. That's enough. Margaret didn't speak for a moment. Then she picked up her bag. I see how it is. Daniel didn't stop her. She walked to the door, turned back once, and said, You'll regret this one day. Daniel didn't respond. She left. Later that evening, Emma sat with him. Daniel replied, She didn't come to stay a day. She came to reclaim control. Emma didn't argue. That night, Daniel called a locksmith and changed the locks. He told Emma, This house is secure now. In every way. Emma nodded. The incident wasn't discussed again. No dramatic reactions. Margaret didn't return. She made a few more calls in the following weeks. Her tone changed. Less demanding, more distant. Daniel still supported her financially. But the message was clear, she was no longer in charge of their lives. The home remained quiet. Emma didn't react to Margaret's visit. She resumed her daily routine without pause. The children didn't ask about their grandmother. Daniel continued observing. Every week, things felt more normal. More settled. There were no loud exits. Just a clear boundary. Set and maintained. Margaret had tried to return. But she was no longer part of the structure she once ruled. Weeks passed since Margaret's attempted return. The house remained unchanged, quiet, consistent, stable. Her absence wasn't mentioned. No photos were removed. No words were spoken against her. She had simply exited, and the household moved forward without resistance. The kids were bathed and dressed before Daniel left for work. The house was clean, organized, and functional. Emma followed the structure not because someone demanded it, but because it brought balance. Emma maintained the routine she had built. Morning meals were ready on time. Emma had placed storybooks for the kids and a few old novels of her own. Daniel saw improvements in every corner. The children had begun speaking more. The older one, who used to stay silent around adults, now asked questions. Sometimes just a short drive. Emma didn't resist. She participated willingly. She spoke more during meals. Her tone was still reserved, but it had lost its caution. The baby laughed more often. Emma started keeping a small journal, noting schedules, grocery lists, and appointments. On weekends, Daniel planned short outings. A visit to the park. Groceries together. Daniel made sure she had the privacy to do so. She handled them herself. It was a sign of quiet confidence. The children joined occasionally, but the conversations remained brief and polite. She placed it on the fridge. It stayed there for weeks. One evening, Daniel returned from work and saw a small bookshelf added to the living room. "You're building something here," he said simply. Then she said, "I did what had to be done." Emma replied, "Just trying to make it practical." They didn't speak about emotions. Just actions. Emma accompanied the children each day. She packed their bags, walked them to class, and waited nearby. The house now had fixed visiting hours. Margaret was no longer mentioned in these discussions. Her presence had become a past event, not a current concern. Daniel continued setting boundaries. He informed relatives who visited that unannounced guests were no longer welcome. Emma spoke to her parents more regularly. Once a week, she had a video call with them. Emma didn't ask Daniel to intervene in those calls. A few days later, Daniel arranged for the children to begin early learning classes. He found a nearby center with a good reputation. This routine became a stable part of the household rhythm. One day, the older child came home with a paper flower and gave it to Emma. That evening, Daniel sat with her in the living room. "You've held everything together," he said. Emma didn't respond immediately. Daniel didn't push further. There were no long conversations. No reflections about the past. He didn't ask about her health or comfort. He only listened. They both preferred actions over words. Gradually, Emma made more decisions around the house. Her medical appointments were covered. But she stayed at a distance. She changed the curtain fabric in the children's room. She organized the storage cabinets. She replaced the old tablecloths. Daniel noticed these changes. He didn't interfere. One night, Emma showed him a list of monthly expenses. "I've been keeping track. It helps," she said. Daniel glanced at the list. "It's more organized than mine." Emma smiled faintly. There was no pressure for approval. She wasn't seeking permission. She was simply doing her part. Meanwhile, Margaret's calls decreased. She now called once every 2 weeks. Daniel kept the tone polite. He gave short answers. She never brought up her previous visit again. Daniel didn't either. Margaret remained in the apartment Daniel paid for. Groceries were delivered weekly. Better savings. That distance allowed the Thompson home to rebuild itself. By the 3rd month, the household ran without interruption. There were no arguments. "Then I'm okay with it." No accusations. No silence that carried weight. Only routine. Daniel woke at 7. Emma handled the kids. Breakfast was served at 8. By 9, Daniel left for work. By noon, Emma had completed chores. By 5, the kids had returned from classes. By 6, dinner was prepared. By 9, the house was quiet. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't overly happy. But it was stable. One Sunday, Daniel received a message from a colleague asking if he was open to transferring abroad again. The opportunity was tempting. More income. New exposure. Daniel discussed it with Emma. "I've been offered a post in Singapore," he said. 1-year contract. "What do you think?" Emma looked at him and replied, "Will we all go this time?" Daniel paused. Then answered, "Yes. We'd go together." Emma nodded. They didn't discuss it further that night. But Daniel knew something had changed. Emma wasn't just asking about logistics. She was signaling that she was ready to leave the past behind. The decision to move abroad wasn't rushed. Daniel confirmed the offer, gathered the paperwork, and completed the relocation process in quiet coordination with Emma. Unlike before, he didn't leave her behind. This time, it was a collective move, for the entire family. The children were enrolled in an international preschool. The apartment Daniel secured was modest but comfortable, with schools and a supermarket nearby. But now, the environment was calmer. No tension behind the walls. No history hanging in the corners. Spoke more freely. Even smiled during short conversations with neighbors. The elder son picked up English faster, making friends in class. The younger child became less clingy, more curious. Emma started taking the kids to the park in the evenings. Sometimes she brought a book along. Emma unpacked slowly, one room at a time, organizing the kitchen first, then the children's bedrooms. The home took shape in less than a week. Singapore was different. Quieter. More structured. No familiar neighbors. No unexpected visits. No interference. Emma adjusted quickly. There were no long silences at the table. Everyone spoke, even if only in small sentences. She followed the same routine she had built back home. Breakfast at 8. School pickups. Groceries on Thursday. Laundry on Sunday. Daniel noticed a visible change in her pace. She walked straighter. Photos sent to relatives back home. No interference. No expectations. The children adapted well. In case you want to talk to your family or explore something for yourself. Daniel came home early whenever possible. They ate dinner as a family, something they hadn't done consistently before. One evening, Daniel handed Emma a phone with a local number. They say she's alone most days. Emma took it. Thank you. Emma began exploring nearby shops alone. She enrolled in a short online course in childcare development. Nothing ambitious. Just a skill she had once been interested in but never had time to pursue. She didn't ask for the phone. But he gave it anyway. That gesture mattered. Her voice was weak. She spoke softly, not with the usual control. Weeks passed. Daniel supported the idea fully. It's useful. You'll enjoy it. She agreed. They celebrated the children's birthdays quietly. A small cake. Some decorations. Then he said, I've kept the apartment. The groceries are still delivered. If you need anything else, let me know. One day, Daniel received a message from a mutual relative, your mother's not well. Maybe check on her. He read the message and thought about it for a moment. That night, after the children slept, he mentioned it to Emma. Mom's health isn't great, he said. Emma listened quietly. Do you want to call her? Daniel paused. I will. But I won't bring her here. Emma nodded. That's your call. She left with confidence and returned on time, sometimes with drawings the kids had made. The next day, Daniel called his mother. Margaret answered slowly. I didn't expect you to call, she said. I heard you weren't well. I'm managing. It's not serious. There was a pause. I'm not asking to come back, she said. I know what I did. Daniel didn't reply immediately. She said, you made the right choice by taking them with you. This is the first time in years I haven't been afraid of home. Daniel said, I know. They didn't speak again for a few weeks. Back in Singapore, life moved forward. Emma completed her course. She began volunteering once a week at the preschool where the kids studied. She didn't mention it much, but Daniel noticed. Daniel started making weekend breakfast for the family. It became routine: eggs, toast, and orange juice. Simple, but shared. There was no final conversation about the past. No apology demanded. No forgiveness declared. But the past no longer held control. The new life was quieter. Balanced. Peaceful. One evening, as they returned from a short family outing, Daniel stood at the door and said, I think we've finally reached normal. Emma smiled faintly. He didn't need to say anything more. She had come through the worst. She had stayed silent when it cost her everything. She had endured without complaint. And now, without drama, without noise, she had healed. Daniel had seen it all. And this time, he stood by her fully.